Welcome to Podcast Seminary. I'm Dr. Freddie Cardoza, your dean. I'm so excited to begin a new series on the human conscience. It's going to be a multi-part series where I help us understand what is going on inside of us. You know, as a backdrop to this, I want to discuss the nature of really human behavior. Now, in the very beginning, in the modern age, when we began the modern field of psychology, psychology comes from a two-word, compound word that is from the Greek. And it comes from psyche and then logos. And the two words essentially mean the study of the soul. That's where you get psyche, the soul, psychology. So psychology is the study of the soul. Specifically, you often hear psychologists say that psychology is the study of human behavior. So the idea is that psychology has always tried to figure out what are people going to do. And you might also say, what is their motivation? So psychology has to do with that. The idea being that if we can understand the nature of behavior, we can then shape behavior. Shape behavior in where? Well, shape behavior in things like people that are committing crimes, shape behavior in the classroom, shape behavior in relationships, shape behavior everywhere, because people essentially want people to behave certain ways. The thing is that there's lots of different views and fields of psychology. All of it, though, somehow is related to the area of behavior again, or somehow related to motivations and thoughts and so on and so forth. Now, the thing is that Christians use psychology a lot like everybody does, with the exception that when we talk about human behavior, when we talk about human motivations, when we talk about my actions and yours, when we talk about a more fundamental issue, how do we live and how do we behave and who are we becoming as people, right? What is our character? See, that's the concern of Christians. And at that most fundamental level of personhood, Christians are trying to understand these issues because we want to become all God's made us to be. We want to become whole persons, happy persons, holy persons, and healthy persons. But the thing is, as we're doing that, the problem is that we have issues. And we have issues, and this is where, again, as I'm exploring in this very first session, the issue of general psychology is the way we often understand it, and then the Christian view of things, is that in the Christian view of things, we have a fundamental problem, and that problem is that we, in our hearts, we are estranged from God, and we have in our literally our entity, in our personhood, we are broken. And we are broken because of, we would say, original sin. Now, in popular psychology, that's really not the view they come from. In other words, human nature and human personhood, from their perspective, is not really that humans are necessarily sinful or have a fundamental problem like that, but usually they would say that problems with humanity come from the environment or come from other people or come from maybe something going on in a person's brain or in their body. And it's really a fundamental difference, you see, because Christians start in human nature with spiritual issues because God made us, and the Bible addresses what happened in our souls, and the Bible addresses what happened to human nature in the very beginning. But because lots of psychology rejects the biblical understanding of human nature, they then come up with alternative explanations. And so, in their perspective, humans are weak, humans are easily distracted, humans are this, humans are that, but not necessarily that humans are broken or that humans are, God forbid, sinful. And so, I want to share that because I want you to understand that humanist, different types of psychology that is not rooted in biblical worldview, and by the way, lots of psychologists are rooted in a biblical worldview, and they do understand these things, and that's very helpful, but some of them don't. Now, why am I bringing this up? It's very important, okay? It's important because this entire month we're trying to help us understand what our motivations are. What makes me tick? What's going on inside of me? Why do I do things that I don't want to do? Or why do I things I shouldn't do? And also, why do other people do things they don't? Because we're all, living in relationships and living in this world, and we're trying to figure things out. And we don't often understand the motivations of others and relationships, our children, our family, our spouses, our significant other, our workmates, and so on and so forth, then we also don't understand what's going on inside of us. And in this first session, I want to help us understand that it really begins by thinking about, where am I coming from? What is my essential view of human nature? Because you see, when we differ on what's going on inside of us and how we are comprised as individuals and what the problem is, that's going to come to radically different perspectives about what's wrong with us. So as you begin this series with me, I want you to begin to think about that. Begin to think about the fact, now watch this, that the Christian view of the world, the Christian view of reality, the Christian view of things is different than others, because the Christian view of things is rooted in the biblical authority of Scripture. And if you don't agree with or accept the authority of Scripture, then you need to come up with an alternative view to explain the world. Does that make sense? So you've got to decide, I've got to decide, what's the proper worldview? In other words, which template of reality am I going to live by? And what Christians would say is that you can live by the other one, but sooner or later it breaks, because God, after all, made things, and sooner or later He reveals those truths to you, and you have to realize that it is the way He said it is. And so I'm going to encourage you by helping teach you and construct for you a view of human nature and the human mind, and especially the human conscience, again, this entire month. And I hope that you enjoy it. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll continue this discussion later.